Good morning, everyone. We are here live on LinkedIn. Hope you are having a good day. Feel free to jump into the comments section. Trying something new today. We're trying out the LinkedIn live functionality here for the network, and we want to take the opportunity to talk about a recent post that I had around Forbes AI 50 and a company that I like and that I follow called Falconry that snagged a spot on this list. So again, if you're in the live session, feel free to drop in a comment and feel free to say hi and uh, I'll take some questions. I'll be on here for about 10-15 minutes, but happy to field any questions. So, just a brief introduction. My name is Manny Bernabe. I run a company called Big Plasma AI. We are in the business of AI transformation for mid-sized companies, particularly companies in industry and use cases that involved IoT. And I'm going to talk about this post that I recently had congratulating Falconry and Nikunj Mehta, at the founder and CEO at Falconry, around snagging this coveted spot. So I'll link to it somewhere in the description below. I think I can maybe just grab the link to the post and drop it in here. And I'm assuming you can see it. I'm still kind of new at this, so I'm assuming you can see it, but you can check that out. Uh, Oh, okay, so it's chat only, it's a not reply. So it's the most recent post on my profile if you want to look at it. But I laid out some things that I thought really stood out when I was looking at falconry and when I was listening to interviews by Nick June. And here are some of the things that stood out for me. But then um, uh, Nick Unge actually dropped in the comment section and left us some really good nuggets of information that I wanted to talk a little bit more about and give you my take on and just give you a little bit more clarity on how I see these and tell you why these are really good steps to follow. If you're a founder at an AI IoT company, these are really good lessons that I think you need to be paying attention to. So here's a comment by Nick Unge, and he talks about the focus on scalability and some of the things that they've been trying to do. So let's walk through each one of these and talk a little bit more about them. And again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section, and we'll chat more about it. But first, so again, the focus is on scalability. So this is actually one of the I think this is the main problem in doing AI and machine learning in the industrial space is this notion that in the industrial space you have a lot of mini problems that you have to solve with individual models. So there's a lot of bespoke solutions that you have to crank out. And if you're scaling AI and machine learning, it's actually very hard to do. It's very hard to do that, to train a new model for every machine, for every component of that machine, and to maintain all of that is, and you need the data scientists to train it, the ML engineers to put in the back end for each model. It becomes very problematic. So scaling is kind of a big deal in industry 4.0 in the IoT space. So this is why the focus here on scalability. So let's talk about these two attributes here: multivariate, multimodal. All right. So when you have a model, you have features that you can put into that model. So what I take it to mean here is that they're constructing models that are have a bunch of variables that you could throw into it that are somewhat flexible. And the multimodal part to me reads as having a feature within that model, within one model, that can accommodate different types of operating modes for that machine. So if you had a truck and you were looking to anticipate when one of those when a key part of that truck is going to fail, you probably want to know when that is in high performance mode versus low performance mode. So that's a mode of operation for that machine. The nice thing about building that into one model is that you can use that same model for different instances of that machine or that device. You don't have to go out and build two different models or three different models, and that just decreases the overall overhead that you have to manage as an AI shop. So those two variables I think are really important as you're developing your models. I think you always want to have fewer models to manage. And yes, they're going to be a little bit more general. But then, if you can do that, that means you're just going to have a more scalable framework that you can leverage. The second point here, other people's sensors. Okay, this is big too. You need data to feed into your machine learning models, and you might be tempted to go on site and start adding a whole bunch of different sensors to the machinery or to the factories that you're interested in modeling for. But that gets expensive very, very fast. It's actually takes quite a bit of time. There's protocols that you have to manage. You have to manage the data pipelines from the different sensors. When you can use sensors that are already put on the machine, that come factory standard with the machine, or if they've retrofitted the machine with other sensors and other data capturing devices, try to use as much of that as possible before you start putting on your own sensors, because it just gets very hairy very fast. So definitely agree with that, using other people's sensors. No data scientists needed here. As a former data scientist, I have to agree with that. Data scientists are very expensive. You have to onboard them to a new problem. So if I have to train a new model on a new area, I have to bring my data scientists up to speed on that area, the whole context, how it's working, how it's being evaluated. So that takes up time. So as much as possible, you want to be able to crank out insights while minimizing the amount of data scientists that need to be involved to generate those new insights. So I think that's a really good metric to keep in mind as you're thinking about scaling your AI and machine learning services. Pay as you go operations. I think okay, so I think there meant to be there was meant to be a comma here. So I think it's pay as you go operations and digital twin pricing. So we'll take those two individually. Pay as you go operations. Um, yeah, I think this is this makes sense, right? Like when you purchase any software online, you want to pay month to month. I think when you're first establishing a B2B AI startup, you want to land a big enterprise account. And usually the way those deals are structured is there's like a major investment for the first couple of years, and then it goes into some sort of SaaS type of arrangement. And that can be somewhat problematic for people. If you can do pay as you go, that it's a SaaS business model. That's great. I think it's a little bit hard to figure that out for most AI startups, but I think that is definitely more customer friendly. And if you can do that, that's awesome. Digital twin pricing. Digital twin is a really underappreciated asset in the data science world. So, a little bit of context. Oftentimes, when you're building data science models for Industry 4.0, you're looking for failures, and it's hard to have those failures happen in the real world because some of these are mission critical assets. So, then how do you build models that are going to anticipate those failures when you can't get the data in real life? Well, you might build a digital twin, a digital representation of that machine, of that factory, to run simulations on, to gather data, to get more information. I think that's a really cool function, and the fact that you have that combined with AI and machine learning, I think that's a really good combination. So I like digital twin. um Low activation period, I gotta agree here. I think once you pen a deal, you have a very short period of time to generate value for that end customer. So to the extent that you can do that quickly, that's winning. If you can show value in 5 weeks versus 5 months, I gotta believe that your chances of keeping that a customer long term go up by 5x, something to that effect. So it's the fact that to the extent that you can make that happen quickly and show some benefit to your internal stakeholder, your internal champion within that company, that's really good too. Makes them look good, gives them confidence, and just helps you generate more business from that client and other clients. Minimal expert time here. I think this is another good one. This is GOAT, absolutely. Oftentimes what you find is, as a data scientist, I'm a former data scientist. I would have to go on site and I would have to interview a whole bunch of experts, and they'd have to tell me about the machine, and they would have to tell me about the business operation, and they would have to tell me about the, how you evaluate the performance. that takes time, and that is actually taking time away from your clients workers. And it's not always the most pleasant thing to do. One, it's taking up their time, but two, it's kind of, it can feel like an interrogation of sorts. As a data scientist, you can be like, well, why did that thing fail, or why did you do this maintenance, or why didn't you do this maintenance? And it can feel kind of a little bit like abrasive. So to the extent that you can minimize the expert time that is required to generate a new insight, that's really good too. Um, Now, GPU accelerated automated learning. I'll take these two things separately because I think they're somewhat different. But automated learning is, you might think of auto ML. So the idea is, again, if I have a similar problem, I don't have to retrain a model from scratch. I have some template or some pattern in terms of how that's been trained in the past, and then I can just simply reapply that pattern for the new problem. So that's sort of auto ML, automated learning. Again, goes to scaling. So how do you minimize the time needed on a model for data scientists? I think that's a good metric. Like data scientist time per model generated is probably a good metric to be tracking as you're thinking about scaling AI. And then accelerated, GPU accelerated, and that's just referring to the computer chip that you might be using to train these models. So rather than CPU, leverage GPU, graphics processing unit, I believe, to accelerate that learning. So just makes it even faster, which is pretty cool. So again, those are really good tips from Nikunj, and really appreciate him sharing these. I think these are tips that I think almost every company, that every AI startup, or any AI a company needs to pay attention to. These tips. These are really good tips. And it's just really nice. You even putting out here like, hey, this is like the right recipe to build a company in this space. And hey, anybody can replicate this recipe. Uh, it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, I think this is a really good recipe. One is figuring out what you have to do. And I think this is a really nice template. But then secondly is having the leadership and the discipline to implement this. It's very hard to invest the time up front into scalable AI. Your temptation is going to be to generate a whole bunch of models, and um and uh and just get insights out there. I think it takes a lot of discipline to be focused on the long term and saying, hey, like, we're not going to want to generate 1,000 models every time we onboard a new client. How do we systematize this? How do we make this more scalable? And I think that takes leadership, and that takes discipline. And this is why, I like Nick Unge as a leader. I think he's got that focus. Anyhow, so I wanted to give you my commentary on that. I thought that was a great comment. You got to check it out. If you're running an AI startup, check out that comment, and make sure that you're following Falconry and Nick Unge to get some great stuff coming here. So I will pause and see if there are any questions, anything that's coming over the live feed that I can address. Anybody have any additional comments that's on here, or any questions that come to mind? Happy to field them right now. All right, I'm not seeing any comments here, but great. Well, this I think will live as a recording on LinkedIn Live, so check that out. Again, my name is Manny Bernabe. I run Big Plasma AI. We focus on lean AI innovation for mid-sized companies in industry and manufacturing. If you want to talk about AI transformation, if you want to talk about injecting AI into your processes, into your business, feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.